Whether your ideal summer destination is the white sand beaches of Krakoa or the rust-red dust storms of Arakko, toss on some flip-flops and settle in for Arakko Public Radio, episode 37, and day 2 of Shark Girl Week 2023, our week-long celebration of the X-Men and summer break. Today, we're talking about the X-Men comics from the week of May 10th, 2023, as we continue the approach towards the Fall of X. I'm that nerdy Papa Bear, and this is the guy who kicked off his summer vacation by committing to over 7 hours of recording with this guy, my one and only Omega Mutant, Keegan.
Hey.
All right, buddy. So not to peel the curtain back too far, but we were going to record 2 episodes in a row today.
Yes.
But I told you right before we hit record that some things came up and we might only record one, but I think that might be a good thing. We were going to have to do 2 Percy weeks back to back. I don't know that I would have been able to have summer vibes for that. This is a summer vibes week.
It's a summer vibes week, We got to get the island vibes going, and Percy is anti-island vibes.
I agree. But you know what? We have some books this week that are island vibes. This episode, we are talking X-Men Red number 11, Rogue and Gambit number 3, Wolverine 33, and going around the Marvel Universe with Captain Marvel 49 and Invincible Iron Man number 6. But first, I put a call out saying, hey, if you have questions, ideas, anything Shark Girl Week related you want to throw our way, please do. And someone came through for us. They asked to remain anonymous, but they hit us up at ArakkoPublicRadio at gmail.com.
Yes. Our long-forgotten email address.
The email address that goes to my phone, thankfully, because I'd never remember to check it. But they want to know your dream vacation spot in the Marvel Universe. If you have, we're going on summer vacation. And you know what? Let's take Krakoa off the table, because I feel like Krakoa gave a built-in obvious answer.
That's
so
fair.
Without Krakoa as an option, where would you vacation?
Dream vacation spot in the Marvel Universe. You know what? I'm gonna go a little more MCU inspired with it, but I'm going with nowhere.
Okay.
I
Definitely
am
MCU nowhere over the comic book nowhere.
yeah, a little bit, but I am a little bit of the puckish rogue aficionado. So just kind of that sleazy nowhere vibe is right up my alley.
I like it. That is a great choice.
Yeah.
So if I could go anywhere I wanted, I would probably just go like the Marvel version of New York City. Like, you're going to walk down the street, you're going to run into some cool hero eventually.
Mm-hmm.
But my decision's kind of made for me. I have a 4-year-old who's obsessed with dinosaurs, and my wife's favorite movie is Jurassic Park. We're going to Savage Land. Like, we're going to go there. It's just going to happen. Yeah.
Not a bad choice, though. I like Savage Land. That's a good choice.
I mean, I would bring someone with me. Like I need Wolverine there as my personal security. But if we're going this big of a fantasy, I can afford that. I can afford that in this scenario. All right. You want to talk X-Men? Oh, yeah. Do you want to talk X-Men Red first?
Let's talk X-Men Red.
X-Men Red number 11, written by Alan Ewing and drawn by Stefano Caselli, opens with a date between Storm and Craig of NASA. Saucier provides a beachfront dinner while Storm flirts, and Craig gives an update on Cobb and Lulo, the little kids he was protecting during Judgment Day. In the conversation, Storm reveals something we've kind of suspected for a while. Officially, Abigail Brand is missing. No one knows where she is. The date is interrupted by Charles Xavier demanding an audience with Storm. For the second episode in a row, we see her anger towards Chuck as she cuts her date short to go confront him. Meanwhile, Sunspot, Nova, and Kobach are chilling in what appears to be an Arakko hot spring, except the water is green. Nova is venting about all the galactic problems currently in Marvel space, including whatever's happening over in the new Guardians of the Galaxy book, the Brood stuff happening over in Captain Marvel, and everything else. Bobby would rather gossip about Storm's date. Kobach has to cut the conversation short as he has to head for the Circle Perilous to face Kaldarak for the seat of victory. This leads the other two to discuss the Great Ring and the new law of Logos that requires candidates to prove their good fits before fighting in the Circle. Apparently, Lycaon is the new seat of stalemate, and Bobby calls them an Omega Wolverine. They too get interrupted by a brilliant light at the old external gate. Storm arrives in Krakoa to confront Charles, drawing a parallel between him pulling her from her work in Arakko and his original tactics to recruit her way back in Giant Size X-Men #1. He tries to defend everything he's done as necessary and enrages her more when he refers to Magneto as Eric. Charles shows a little vulnerability, saying Eric was his close friend, but he never even knew Max. He asks her for Magneto's last words, but Storm refuses to share his private thoughts. Chuck gets pissed, says nothing is private from him, and assumes Magneto sensed Sinister's presence and insists he's not asking. Roro reiterates he's in no position to order her to do anything, and he insists he could just read her surface memories, and she taunts him to go ahead and try. We're met with one of the most gorgeous montages of past Storm and Chuck scenes, and he realizes she's repelled his psychic probe. She points out she used the psychic defense techniques he taught them, and he reveals he's afraid. Charles talks about how the Council Massacre could have been the start of the Mr. Sinister manipulations, or it could have started much sooner. Storm relents and reveals that Magneto did think of Chuck as he died, and that he did warn her to watch him. But it had nothing to do with Sinister. She offers him one small piece of reassurance. Magneto was his friend, but she sure as hell isn't anymore. She warns him not to come through the Rockin' Gate again, and then Sunspot and Nova reach the external gate and are greeted by John Ironfire, emerging with the white sword and the warning that we've all been waiting for. Genesis is coming.
This was such a cool issue.
Have I ever mentioned I'm a fan of Al Ewing?
Once or twice, I feel
Okay.
like.
Maybe. I want to make that. I need to put that stamp on this episode. I feel like I finally can just come out and say it. That dude can write a good comic.
It's a brave statement. It's a brave statement, but a true one nonetheless. It's just so good every time.
It does so much, and I feel like this paired with the Immortal X-Men issue, just such a great exploration of Storm and that relationship with Chuck, and that's the best Charles has been written in a long time. Seeing him get both vulnerable and completely eviscerated there was so satisfying.
Especially matched with his arrogance into the vulnerability.
Oh, totally. I thought it was really interesting that he literally at one point says, "Now I'm sole captain of the ship of state." So he's taking the stance that he's more important than the entire council. Mere moments after he had his vote stripped, he has less literal power than ever, and yet he's asserting his symbolic role is more important than ever.
He is nothing more than a figurehead, and assuming that it's the most important thing that he can be.
And it should be noted here, Kieran Gillen has said this entire issue took place during the "and some days later" part of the last issue. So this is before the Colossus scene. So, I mean, just to give you that time frame piece, basically, by the time she gives her vote to Colossus, she's already told Chuck, "Don't you dare come to Arakko anymore." So that friendship ended already.
Yeah. Wow.
But that also tells you that he's had that cataclysmic shift in his role that recently. That it's within a few days, because whatever it is, several days later, I think is how it's phrased in Immortal X-Men. So within the last few days, he's had all of his power stripped from him, and he's still standing there saying, "I am the sole head of state." So yeah, like you said, his ego is still there. It's still firing on all cylinders. Back to the beginning. There's this conversation between Saucier and Craig. Spices, well, sure. Oh yeah, I know all about the Iraqi spice, and that's as Storm is coming down in this suit that. It's
a good suit.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It's a good suit.
We have to pause for a second.
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
Sorry. So I got the Spider-Verse cover of this issue, and I thought it was the best version that we were going to see for this month. And then we got inside the issue and blew that out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't even know if like I could do it justice holding it to the camera, but basically, other than the skirt part, she's covered by literal lightning, no cloth. It's just amazing.
It's such a cool look. I love the conversation about it where Craig says, and suddenly I feel very underdressed. And her response is, don't worry, the last person I had dinner with was Dr. Doom, and he didn't even take his faceplate off.
So good. Their banter is amazing. I know we've talked about other people that belong with Storm, that she needs a solid like pairing again after the divorce has now been a while, but her and Craig have great chemistry. I love them together.
I'm a real big fan of her and Craig.
Yeah, it's a great pairing. I would argue, and I don't know if this stood out to you in the same way, not the most sexually suggestive thing in the book. So our guy Kobach. So when they're in the pool and he stands up, let me see if I can find the panel. Did you notice Sunspot's knee placement?
The knee, yeah, I definitely.
The knee that clearly looks like it's like that looks like it should be X-rated to me. Like the knee has a knob in just the wrong spot. It looks like.
Yeah, I feel like that was pretty intentional.
So both of the Arakkans going to face off for the seat. Which seat was it they were facing off for? Calderak and Kobach.
Mm-hmm.
For the seat of victory is what they were facing off for. They've both appeared in early issues of this series. One faced Storm in the first couple issues, and I don't remember who the other one faced. We've seen them both in the Circle Perilous, so like they were not new creations. However, the new creation we got in this issue, who we sure as hell better see, there better be some payoff to this. Lycion as a Omega Wolverine. What the hell does that mean, and what does that look like?
Yeah, I need to know more about that.
Should we jump into the meat?
Let's jump into the meat.
Storm and Chuck and Magneto.
Yeah.
Chuck calling him Eric.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to me that they spent the first, 3 years of Krakoa as not just allies, but as brothers again.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know so much that Charles can lean on he was Max when I was close to him, and more he was Max when I cared enough about people to learn about them instead of like going with my preconceptions, I guess is what I'm thinking, because Magneto wasn't not letting him in. Like they went and they built a society together, and
right
from the ground up. They sat next to each other on the council for all that time.
And he's a fool the entire time he's talking, right? Like,
oh, absolutely.
Every point he makes is a foolish one. Even when he, like, when Magnus died, I was engaged in psychic warfare on a scale you cannot imagine. Like, bro, do you understand what those two were doing as that was happening? Like,
he is the worst.
God, I can't stand him. I hate him.
Do you want to get into my theory as of this issue?
Yeah, let's hear it.
So I don't know that I think this will happen, but I'm starting to think this could be their out, or maybe not even out, their way forward. So we're starting to see that Fall of X seems to be the end of Xavier's time as the head of Krakoa, probably, right? Like it seems like things aren't going well for him the next few months. They've already been going really badly, and everything seems to be pointing towards his life falling apart more and more. So I think Marvel is walking into a position where they can have their cake and eat it too. So if you have Xavier no longer leading Krakoa, have him go restart the school for extraordinary youth, or a new version of it, or reopen the old school, whatever he wants to do. He heads back and he realizes that, there's no one guiding these kids today, even though I don't know. Seems like the New Mutants and the kids are doing fine on the island, but have that, but that could be the stance he takes, so that you've got MCU synergy and that there are comics about the mutant school. But then for all the people that are into the Krakoan status quo, you just keep Krakoa going with new leadership, and you keep like, it's all about the politics anyway. So you just have that ever evolving nation state as almost not necessarily a separate line, and you have the two interact or whatever. But you could have both status quos going at the same time, and probably the cleanest way to do that is have Chuck, the guy that's been villainized here, be the one to go off. He's a familiar face. He could kind of slowly turn back into a more redeemable version of himself, which would be way easier to do if he is separated from his sins on Krakoa.
I think that's a great idea.
To me, it's becoming like the cleanest way forward, because they're gonna have X-Men 97 starting up. They're gonna have more presence in the MCU. They're gonna want a recognizable version of that, and maybe that's what they're doing in the Ultimate Universe. But to me, that'd be a clean way to have in 616 their cake and to eat it too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. When you put it that way, I like the thought of it, like him going back to what he was actually good at.
You could really remove most of the current council and replace them with a new council, and it would still be a really cool concept.
I think so too.
Do we want to say anything on Ironfire? I mean, I know he only shows up in a single panel.
I mean,
he was such a cool part of Sins of Sinister.
It's exciting to have him like officially here, you know?
Yeah.
Like we knew he was coming back, but to have him here, it's nice.
This is the right place for him, and it's the right place for him to show up, because we're all going to be waiting with bated breath. Does he make the same choice in the Genesis War, or does something happen so that he can make the right choice? Because that was such an interesting beat that was just dropped into Sins of Sinister when he said, like, oh, my biggest regret is the decision I made in the Genesis War, without telling us what the hell that decision was.
Yeah.
So, yeah. He looks great.
Yep.
Looked awesome. Got the white sword. Maybe that's everything we need to say.
I mean, very cool. Also, you mentioned it in the synopsis of the issue, but the flashback page for Charles,
most gorgeous page like ever. So good.
So good. The way that they did that really just it made me pause. It was really cool.
And it's a great example of page layout, because at least some of them are just the original art, like lifted off the page and like cut in the right spot and had the right color desaturation. And some of them might have been redraws, but there was a special thanks in the beginning for all of the original creators of all the pages that were referenced. Seeing all of their interactions all in a row like that really does hammer home. Out of all of the X-Men, she's probably the one he has screwed over the most consistently and the harshest.
Yeah.
Abigail Brand, that they all assume she's just gone. We saw in, now I don't remember the issue number, it was the last one before Sins of Sinister, I'm pretty sure, that basically she tried to teleport away to what she thought was a secret location, but Fisher King was there waiting for her, and he kind of threatened, or maybe it was a genuine offer, but to like remake her personality for her was essentially what he claimed. So Storm is either like lying, or Fisher is working in a way she's unaware of. So I don't know how tongue-in-cheek the like, oh yeah, no, she's missing now line was in the issue, but that was the first reference we've seen to her at all since we actually saw that play out, I'm pretty sure. So that was neat.
Yeah.
I would love to see Bobby paired with Nova more. Their banter was really fun, and I don't think Nova's being used by Lansing and Kelly in the new Guardians of the Galaxy, so Ewing should just embrace and use him as much as he can.
Yeah.
Man, it's hard to come up with negatives on this issue. It was a really, really well done issue.
I didn't really have any negatives. It was just like pure good for me.
Yeah. The only thing I would say, and I don't think it's so much a negative, is just I love the guy. We didn't actually get to see Lotus Logos at all, because We got to see a little bit of how he's running things, and we got to hear about how he's running things with the ingenious, somewhat common sense laws of Logos that, oh, hey, before you can go, like, we'll keep the tradition of murdering each other for the seats, but before you're even qualified to murder someone for it, let's make sure you're good enough to do the job. Pretty great addition to the rules of Arakko. Should help the Right Ring maybe do a little better than the Quiet Council.
I agree completely.
And then in Mortal, we got to see him physically, but I maybe that's next issue. We're gonna finally get to see the new ring, like in an actual meeting situation. But
yeah, that would be cool. I would like that a lot.
That is the closest thing I have to a negative, and it's not a real knock on the issue. Just I want to see my boy.
Yeah.
So, should we move on to a book I do have some negatives to say about?
I think it's that time.
Wolverine 33, written by Benjamin Percy, drawn by one Jose Rip, opens with Beast sending one of his Beast clones to retrieve the dead Wolverine clone. I get, if you didn't read or listen to us talk about Wolverine 32, it might be a little weird. But basically, he's got a giant mecha built from a skull base that used to house X-Force, and now houses his army of clones, the weapons of X, instead. In last issue, they left behind one of their Wolverine clones on the last job, so he decides to send one of his Beast clones to lead an expedition of Wolverines to find the corpse, and they're not real happy about it because they're supposed to be the brains, and the Wolverines are supposed to be the muscle. So unfortunate for them, though, Maverick escaped with the corpse, and he manages to single-handedly kill the whole platoon. So eat your fucking heart out, tier list people, because you gotta drop Wolverine a few pegs now. Maverick could take out a whole army of them. Thanks, Percy. Data page reveals that the Beast clones are murmuring about revolution and that Beast Prime is spying on them. In the Healing Gardens, Jeff Bannister wakes up and frantically wants to find his daughter. Luckily, Black Tom is taking care of her, and she lectures him on not being more loyal to his friend Wolverine. Speaking of Wolverine, he finally shows up like almost 2/3 of the way through his own book. He interrupts Maverick, who had just put the clone in a jail cell. They banter, and Logan mentions that Beast hasn't mastered the formula on the clones, and in an act of mercy, kills the clone, and Maverick and Wolverine agree to work together moving forward. Beast plans to pressure the UK by having his Wolverines destroy cargo ships, so we watch the Wolverines take one out, and then we see the Beasts conspiring some more. Bannister tries to get Dolores from the CIA to send him after Beast, who we see kill all of his clones for their disobedience. Bannister leads a military strike, but immediately they mistake the real Wolverine for one of the clones. Dun, dun, dun! All right. Not as much as I'm going to have to rant about X-Force, because at least this doesn't touch any of my, like, closest to my heart characters.
Yeah.
But Benjamin Percy decided, I'm going to do a clone-based story right after all of the other books tied together for Since the Sinister in a very, very, very well-done clone-based story. But I'm not going to, like, bother with establishing the rules, the how, the why of my clones. And apparently how accurate the cloning is either. Like,
Yeah.
what does that mean? Hasn't mastered the formula.
I have no idea what that means. It seems like a really, really lazy cop-out for the fact that he just wrote an entire army of Wolverines getting killed.
It's so hard because I feel like I'm alternating between this book being just self-aware enough to be fun,
Mm-hmm.
and it being the most head up its ass, like ignoring everything around it book possible.
Yeah.
And this issue was definitely on the second end of that spectrum. There was a backup story. This month, Marvel had quite a few that had these kind of inconsequential but fun backups that mostly were like short team ups with like underutilized AAPI characters for
Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month.
Thank you, AAPI month. And they did a bunch of them. And this one had him teaming up with Sister Dagger, which was a Iron Fist.
And it was referenced in like the
member.
Shang-Chi series that they just did. And
yes. She probably was more involved with Shang-Chi lately, but the two are pretty connected at this point now. It was a neat little story, and he kind of earned her respect in it. They were stopping some Xeno smugglers. It was written by Gene Luen Liang and drawn by Peter Nguyen, so it definitely had way more charm than the main book did.
Yeah, I thought that backup was really fun. I thought Peter Nguyen's art was just like awesome.
Yeah, it looked really cool. I like Gene Luen Liang. The Monkey Prince for DC that just wrapped up was one of the best ongoings they've done recently. Really, really fun. He's just has great. He wrote really great. The Superman of China a few years ago. Just a great. Lighthearted is not the word I'm looking for. Optimistic writer. Like he can write things without that like grim kind of sheen that Percy has had on Wolverine for years now. So it was a nice change of pace.
It's a lot like more bright, a lot more hopeful.
Yeah. I enjoyed the backup a lot. It not enough to make up for having had to read the other 30-some pages. So Bannister gets shut down by the CIA, and so he goes and recruits army buddies he apparently had. He gets to just commandeer an entire fleet, apparently, because he's got a helicopter, he's got ships. Don't bother explaining it, that's fine. But how does no one give a shit that he's out there, Beast is out there wandering the ocean just taking out citizen ships and military submarines, and like they scoff at him, Bannister, wanting to deal with it. Like he goes to a CIA lead and she's like, what? No, we got more important things to do.
That's the CIA, baby. Why would the human CIA be any better at their jobs than the mutant one?
That's fair, but it just feels like such a stretch from a storytelling perspective to be like, he's literally doing every crime we can possibly think of, including stuff that people got tried at the Hague for. But here's more importance. The Hellfire Gala is coming up, baby.
Maybe if I go back, you know what? I'm not even going to finish that sentence. That's too many issues to read. But maybe if I read Wolverine and X-Force with the vision of it is actually a statement on and like demonization of the CIA, maybe it becomes good.
Maybe. You're a very hopeful man.
I ain't hoping for nothing because I ain't reading that many, but
long as you don't make me reread X Lives and X Deaths. Okay, one more complaint, and I'll try to be more positive because this is beach week.
Beach week.
Happy vacation us. Is the Cerebro sword the most annoying MacGuffin ever?
It's up there.
This is the second issue in a row where they're like, clearly the most powerful thing at Beast's arsenal is the Cerebro sword. He knows it. We, his clones, know it. It's so important. No one's going to bother to tell us what it does. He just goes and stares at it in its like shiny case, and we're like, I assume it's powering it. Some of the stuff going on. Maybe it's how he gets some of his information, but how? Why? Where'd it come from? What's the point of it? Like, we know he got a hold of it during X Lives, but other than that,
it's annoying and dumb. I don't get it.
It is both of those things, sir. All right. Is there anything positive to say about this? I'm having the opposite problem I had last issue. Come up with something nice to say.
I do like that Beast is so unlikable that nobody likes him, even himself.
That's true. Even his own clothes. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. That was funny. All right.
Like, Beast is so far gone. He's so far off of the path that clones of himself are even like, yo, this dude, though, I don't know.
It's so hard to say because he has been a source of annoyance in places, but overall, I really like the character of Bannister.
Yeah, I like Bannister.
his reaction to his daughter finally get kind of dressing him down for abandoning Wolverine, and him basically being like, yeah, you're right, boo, you're right. Like, that was nice to see. That's the highlight of the issue. That and the
Yeah.
backup story that clearly didn't have anything to do with Percy, but was still just a neat little story.
I really liked the backup. I'd read more of that any day.
Absolutely. I wonder if we're gonna get Yang announced on an ongoing soon, because Monkey Prince ended a few months ago, so he should have some free time on his hands.
That is true. That would be cool.
All right. I don't know if I want to like spoil it, but I'm gonna stay a little negative. Do you want to talk Rogue and Gambit number 3?
Want is a strong word, but yeah, let's do it.
Written by Stephanie Phillips, drawn by Carlos Gomez. It opens with Destiny and Mystique worrying about what happens if Rogue and Gambit fail. Meanwhile, they're in Forge's lab, with Gambit getting in trouble for touching everything. Rogue asks Forge for the Caliban and Mystique DNA suit he used to get into the vault, but Forge assures her it's been destroyed. Gambit gets really mad at Rogue for not telling him about the suit sooner. We get a flashback to years ago when Rogue and Gambit kissed after they all realized how powerful Captain Marvel's powers made her. In the present, he grills her more about what she isn't telling him. And before the fight escalates too much, Forge explains why he destroyed the suit. Gambit sets off an explosion in the lab, and Forge kicks them all out. On the street, Gambit reveals Forge lied, and he stole the suit so she can finish the mission. Yep, that's right. Not we, she. On the street, Gambit, I don't know. He doesn't want to be in the way and sends her off to save the world. So Rogue texts Rocket fucking Raccoon for dating advice, and arguably the dumbest data page we've gotten since we started doing the data pages, complaining that he's been jealous ever since she was voted on the X-Men. In New Mexico, Rogue finds where Manifold is being held, but she's attacked by Juggernaut, Deathstrike, Vanisher, Electro, Absorbing Man, and Manifold, who are all being mind-controlled. She manages to yank the device controlling Absorbing Man out of him, but he collapses, and a voice reveals the devices are all tied to their central nervous systems. Saving them will kill them. I genuinely really like Stephanie Phillips. Like, I'm really enjoying. She's doing Cosmic Ghost Rider right now, and it is a really fun book. I liked her Harley Quinn. This book, it's making me defend Gambit. Like, it's making me say, like, oh, that's a bad characterization of a character who sucks anyways. Like, somehow this is making him worse than he should be.
Yeah. I can't figure it out because, like you said, I like Stephanie Phillips. I don't like this book.
Yeah.
And I like Gambit. And I'm okay with Rogue. Don't like this book.
Opposite. I genuinely love Rogue. So one, I don't understand where they're going with their relationship at all. But if she is going to text someone for advice, why is it Rocket Raccoon? Can I make it the obvious choice?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't it be any of the Exterminators? We just saw how good they are at the, like, girl power, like, talk about how shitty their boyfriends are thing.
You mean to tell me that they didn't want to set up Exterminators 2, Electric Boogaloo, and add Rogue to the team?
How good would that book be?
That would be incredible.
You will be proud of me. So, you might notice mostly my physical collection is omnis or deluxe hardcovers. I like my physical stuff to be oversized, or I get covers I like. Like, that's I'm not usually a trade paperback guy. I bought my first ever X-Men trade paperback this last week.
Was it Exterminators?
I ordered a copy of Exterminators for my wife to read because I think that's going to be her gateway into, like, reading some Krakoa.
I love that. And it should be gateway because Exterminators is a perfect book and I love it so much.
I've mentioned on here already that she reads Deadpool, but I feel like the next step is, like, Deadpool would, like, dip your toes into Krakoa. Like, you get to see that it exists or whatever in there, and then Exterminators will show you the true potential of this wonderful land we now have.
Now I'm mad that Stephanie Phillips did not do, like, just the tee up for Leah Williams to get.
And they're friends.
Too. Yeah.
They're constantly social media, like, boosting each other. So it definitely would have been great to tee up your friend.
Oh my, like, just like a quick text to Boom Boom or like a group chat that's the exterminators. And
That's the thing. It wouldn't matter which of them you went with. Could have been
Yeah.
Boom Boom, could have been Dazzler. Any of them would have been great texts. I guess maybe Laura would have been a little odd, but even that would have worked.
yeah.
All right.
Rocket, though, huh?
Do you want my theory or do you want Nitpick Corner first?
Either one is great with me.
I'm going to crawl into Nitpick Corner here. Nitpick
right.
Corner, which I've not done in a while.
No.
I've done like Nitpick Lights, but this is full on Nitpick Corner. So they have the flashback where they reference Captain Marvel's powers, which is already a little wrong because when she absorbed her powers, she was Miss Marvel, but whatever. Like that you could forgive that. Whatever. They just didn't want to confuse people. Have some faith in your audience. But then in the present day, she references again Captain Marvel's powers. It has been years since she had Captain Marvel's powers. Mm-hmm. It was a big plot point that like it was physically dangerous to them both for her to have Captain Marvel's powers. Since 2017, I think it was, 2019, somewhere in that range, she has had Wonder Man's. If you were writing a book about a character, don't you think like you or the ex-office editors or someone should double check whose powers you have at the moment?
That's the thing is, I feel like it's odd that no one caught that.
Yeah.
That nobody caught that.
And I mean, I've seen some mad people online too. I was not the only one to make this nitpick notice. So maybe it's too big of a maybe we need like continuity corner or something because it's not even technically a nitpick. It's like an actually infuriating thing, but
it's an odd choice.
Yeah, I saw some people like lampshade it with, well, maybe it takes place after the Captain Marvel issue and like she has her powers from that, but even that's a stretch.
It's a stretch.
Because we've seen there's a difference between her absorbing powers temporarily and like whoever she absorbs for her main like that's two separate absorption powers or whatever. So he's definitely getting dumped, and that's why he ends up on the Dark X-Men, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Like he's gonna come in and be wearing the suit, or that Rogue we see is him wearing the suit already. Something's gonna happen with him saving the day, but it won't be enough, and she'll still decide at the end, like in the last page, or like last few pages of the last issue, that we're done, sugar. And then
he's gonna be like, "Why you gonna be like that, Shay?"
Yeah, and then he'll be like, "Fine, I'll just go bang Maddie," and then he'll jump ship.
Yeah,
that's the way it's gonna go.
Oh
and
man,
he's such a scourge. Like no one will be surprised. Like, oh yeah, that asshole's gone again. Whatever.
Yeah.
If anyone's new, it's if this is your first episode, the second episode of Short Girl Week, it is somewhat of a running joke that I hate Gambit.
And I love Gambit.
I don't.
My defense of Gambit is simple. He is a scamp. He is a little guy.
I have never seen the appeal of Gambit. I mean, I don't like outright hate him, but he's not my favorite character.
Allow me to send you a quick little appeal of why he is good. He's just a little guy.
Let's just say, at 10 years old, when I was not yet that nerdy Papa Bear, and I was just that nerdy cub, I don't know. Rogue was a hottie. Mm-hmm. She was a hottie in the animated series. She was a hottie in the 90s comics issues. There's that scene that gets screenshot always from the animated series of her like crawling and her like any pubescent boy freaks out at that ass, right? So
yeah.
So seeing her with street urchin essentially, doesn't feel right for me.
I get it. That's kind of all I have to say about Rogue and Gambit.
I guess I could complain more generally, although I'll probably be doing it more this week. I admire them trying, being honest and giving us these carryover miniseries between like the beginning of Sons of Sinister and the beginning of Fall of X, where we got a lot of the first half of 2023 was these miniseries that all feel really inconsequential. And that really is a bummer. Because a lot of these characters could be doing really interesting things, and instead they're in these kind of holding pattern kind of meh books.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna talk Captain Britain more. We're gonna talk the New Mutants, Lethal Legion. We're gonna talk the Bishop one. They're all kind of dragging, and this one is in that pile of books that are clearly just space holders until Fall of X launches.
I think that's my biggest issue with. I know Fall of X isn't necessarily an event, but it's kind of an event, right?
Well, and I mentioned it yesterday, but they've kind of turned it into one in that they are
Yeah.
keeping it to just 6 months now.
Mm-hmm. And that's really the thing. I think it's my big issue with having all of these different events is when you only have a month or two in between them, those times in between your events become holding patterns where nothing moves forward.
Because of the way Sins of Sinister worked, which I still think was like the perfect X-Men event. That's the way to do it. You have the 3 books that tie into it, and then everybody else can just exist. Really, you're talking the end of for those books. You're talking the end of Judgment Day to the beginning of Fall of X, which is really like 9 months. That's enough time to tell real stories. Yeah. They made an active choice to make this all filler, and that's where I get frustrated.
That is very fair.
And I feel like my relationship with the X-Men this year so far, as opposed to last year, where I feel like I was loving most stuff, has been really the 2 extremes. I really, really have loved the 3 things that were tied to Sins of Sinister. Mm-hmm. I feel like I've really been meh on a majority of everything else.
That's the thing. For me, it's like there's 3 levels, right? You got your Ewing, Spurrier, and Gillen books, right? Love them. Incredible. Then at the bottom of the barrel, you got your Percys. And then in the middle is everything else. And it's like, you love it. Then at the bottom, you hate it. And to me, and this is just me as someone who's like, been creating stuff, the middle where it makes me kind of feel nothing, I feel like that's the worst because...
Nope. I was going to say that when you brought up the 3 tiers, I would say I have more fun with the Percys currently.
Yeah.
Because
at least he makes me feel something.
Absolutely.
He inspires an emotion.
It's the same thing with the terrible Spider-Man. I will never forgive Zeb Wells' Spider-Man, but it's
written
a lot
by Zeb Wells.
It's a lot easier for me to sit down and read that than it is some of these nothing books.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I know that there's a big push online of, if you hate something, don't force yourself to read it or indulge in it.
I don't have to force myself to read things I hate. I don't know if that's like an abnormal thing. I don't know if that's like my neurodivergency. If I hate something, I can motivate myself to read it so I understand what I'm hating. Easier than I can something I don't care about.
But it's just like at least it makes me feel something. I'd rather feel something than feel nothing, even if it's boiling rage.
You are hitting the nail on the head for me for, I think, what's been really frustrating about a lot of these books for me is, they just, they don't push me in any direction.
Yeah. No needle moved whatsoever.
And that is not beach level chatter. No. So, I am still loving the X-Men as a whole.
Me too.
I am still loving the current status quo. I am still loving everything in these solicits that looks like we are headed in a really cool direction. Sins of Sinister was legit probably my favorite event ever. Like, I was sitting here trying to think of anything that gets on that same level for me, and it was just so succinct and so perfect. So I am not being a negative Nelly on the X Office as a whole. The
only kind of event type thing that is really a challenge for me to say that Sins of Sinister beats is King in Black, and that's only because of how much King in Black moved the needle for me on a character. Right?
No, I think that's totally fair.
It recontextualized a character from I don't like this character to my favorite Marvel character. It's hard to beat that. But as far as like overall event and appeal, like, overall, I definitely think Sins of Sinister is better. It's just for me personally.
No, I hear you. And I have questions for you. We'll have a special segment at the end after Around the Marvel Universe called Symbiote synergy. I don't know. I want to chat symbiotes a little bit with you because we got Summers of the Symbiotes and we're having our summer celebration, so it'll tie in somehow.
Yeah.
Should we go around the Marvel Universe real quick, though?
Let's go around the Marvel Universe.
All right. We had Captain Marvel 49, which I almost did a full write-up for, but frankly, I am still brooded out.
Yeah.
But this is finally the true end of the Brood arc. It's the issue's mostly Carol like God moding it anyways. But about a third of the way into the issue, the team from the X-Men does show up. So you've got the team she was traveling with and the team from the X-Men book. So you got a whole bunch of X-Men there, basically just buying her time. It's really nice. I'm really loving while we still have her, and I'm sure her days are numbered. But anytime Talon and Laura are in the same book is really fun for me right now. Getting both versions of Laura Kinney in any level of interaction, and I'm still really hoping we get like a full-on team up somewhere of the two of them. I genuinely really like the way Kelly Thompson writes all of these characters. I'm just not very confident that any of these character beats are going to have any consequences or go anywhere unless Kelly gets a book in the X office, because she's got one issue left on Captain Marvel and then her run wraps up. So I don't think she's going to use them in that book again. And we have the Fall of X books and none of them have her name on them. So as great as her characterization of them all are, I don't know that they're going to be followed up with anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she writes a better Rogue and Gambit than the Rogue and Gambit book, but the Rogue and Gambit book we could see is there's going to be consequences to what's happening there. And not that every book needs to have consequences. I just mean it's almost like a tease to see, like, oh man, she writes a good Cyclops. Oh man, she writes a good Forge. Oh man, she writes a good this guy. She writes a good Rogue and Gambit. Whoever it is, and then pull the rug out. She's not writing X-Men.
Yeah, and it's a shame because, like, it feels like you were saying, like, it feels so much like, you know, this is showing what she can do. Like, this is almost like an audition, you know?
And maybe it is, and maybe we're just getting that delay of, like, we get through Fall of X, and that's why Fall of X is shorter, and whatever the rise of Emma, or whatever the next era is, maybe she's gonna be writing something in that. We can dream. Because I do really. I feel like now I'm feeling like I should have focused more on this issue so that I could put enough praise on it. Definitely gets the characters. I wouldn't mind with Dugan doing Uncanny Avengers and Iron Man. She could take over the main X-Men book.
Absolutely.
Like, give her that cast. That would be cool. Let her write the next couple Hellfire Galas. I feel like that would be a great spot to slot in and would bring our diversity level back up some in the X office, because it is a lot of cishet white dudes writing those books right now. So
that's a big problem right now.
I'm really excited about Realms of X.
Yeah.
It's really good and has a pretty diverse creative team. Around the Marvel Universe, we're going Invincible Iron Man number 6. So last issue, we had a present day Emma and Tony Stark interaction. Did you read this month's? I forgot when you texted me asking which ones we were talking about today. I forgot to even include this one. So this is not on you at all.
And I'll be honest, I didn't read it. Here's my problem. I don't like Iron Man enough as a character to even bother.
I'm hot or cold, but yeah, he's definitely my least favorite of the Trinity of Marvel, if you really want to call them the Trinity of Marvel.
Yeah, the big three from the movies.
Yeah, definitely my least favorite of them. And as much as Robert Downey Jr.'s performance is cool, I blame him for making the character even less enjoyable overall in my mind, because like now Ant-Man is Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. Now Doctor Strange is Robert Downey Jr. And that's a total just like pet peeve of mine. But ever since the movie versions of them are basically remakes of Tony Stark, now the comic characters have been slowly turning into just alternate Tony Starks, and
that's actually my big complaint with the Doctor Strange movies and stuff. Is I'm like, why would I want to watch British Tony Stark when I don't like the American one? Like,
no, I 100%, and I think I would even be okay with it if Cumberbatch just did it and it didn't pour over to the comics as much as it has.
Mm-hmm.
I tried reading the new volume because I've heard really great things, and I like Jed Mackey. But he literally is just writing he's writing a comic book version of Benedict Cumberbatch's impersonation of Robert Downey Jr., and it's tough to read.
Yeah.
But since you didn't read it, I just want to show you. So it's a flashback story of Emma interacting with, well, to tell you the era of Tony Stark it was. Let me find him in the shoulder pad costume. Yeah, so that's what Tony looks like. So they're giving you like a clear time frame for the flashback. She's full villain mode. She's disguising herself as Nick Fury at first, and then she tries doing this like sexy flirty thing of like, you can arrest me, but then the art just takes any of the sex appeal away. Like, look at that face. Look at that face. It's like,
what's been happening to Emma in art lately?
Emma is so far like, yeah, the broad spectrum of faces they give her right now.
Sometimes they nail it, and she has like the most incredible art. And then there's some just real stinkers. Where
what was the one early in the year? Was it?
I can't remember.
Marauders? Was it Marauders that had a really bad hair?
There was a Marauders Emma that I just hated.
Yeah, definitely nerfed by the art. So I really liked. There was one issue of Dugan's Iron Man I really enjoyed because it was him basically giving Elon Musk a beatdown. But
yes.
Overall, it is a tough read, but it has some potential, and it's gonna tie more in. Like its issues are officially Fall of X issues starting September, or
we'll see what happens.
Maybe August. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe it'll be really interesting stuff. Symbiotes.
Yeah, symbiotes.
Are you caught up on Venom?
Venom, yes.
How are you feeling about it's doing some recontextualization of Kate's a little bit? Are you enjoying that?
I am in a wait and see kind of pattern with that.
I'm really, really digging what it's doing with Eddie Brock. Like I wanted to pick your brain because I see how it could be a negative for people that really just want to keep Kate's story pure, because it is gonna be fiddling with some things, it seems.
Yeah, so like by no means do I hate it just because it's going, in this direction of changing or recontextualizing what Kate's did. But I want to see where they end up with it.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to say it's bad. I don't want to say it's good. Play with the toys. That's fine. Play with the toys that Donny Cates so brilliantly invented because he's a god.
Just don't melt them. Just don't melt the toys.
Don't melt them and ruin everything with it. Like I want to see where it ends up, and I'm intrigued, and I think that that's the important part, right? I am intrigued. I am wanting to keep reading.
So I've got like, they're both, for as involved as they both are in the interviewing scene, like they don't talk about their personal relationships much, but by how much Ewing follows Kate's like runs and Kate's follows Ewing's runs, I get the impression they very much respect each other. They very much are going to try to honor each other's works. So I have faith that Ewing is running with it. The fact that he's writing the book solo now, that Rom V has stepped away, like it should be pretty focused. So I have a lot of high hopes. I do find it interesting the End of Venomverse by Cullen Bunn is tying Null in really heavily too. So I'm very curious. I know Summer of Symbiotes kind of a catch-all. There's a ton of Carnage related stuff happening too, which I am enjoying. Carnage Reigns has been fun so far. It's like 3 of the 8 issues are out or whatever, and I've enjoyed all of it. But it definitely seems like they're really throwing everything they can at the symbiotes all at once in like a really rapid fire succession. And when you've got a mythology that grew so much in the Donny Cates King in Black run in that era, it's gonna be a tough land. Like they have to stick that landing without angering the fan. Like, that brought a lot of fans in.
Yeah.
Like out of the last 5 years, I don't know if there's been a bigger like new audience draw than Donny Cates on Venom. That was
I hated
crossover
Venom.
hit.
I hated symbiotes. The only omnibus that I own right now is Cates' Venom.
Yeah,
I feel like that says it all.
absolutely. No, I know how passionate you are, and I don't think you are in any way like an anomaly. There are a lot of people it has brought in. There are people that didn't read comics. There's people that hadn't read comics in years that came back for it. It is a crossover media hit. It's something that permeated pop culture in a way that few comic book runs do. So I'm interested to see what happens. I'm very curious.
Me too.
Next week.
I
guess not really next week. Next up. Tomorrow. Next up on Shark Girl Week. We've only got 2 books. X-Men 22 and X-Force number 40.
Spoiler alert, I'm going to be talking a lot of good things about Forge next week.
I'm glad that we could talk really positively about one of the books.
Yeah, because I'm excited to talk about Forge.
X-Men is beach vibes. I'm not sure X-Force is beach vibes. But you know what? We finally have a small enough list. You're also going to get a Shark Girl Week themed game. Hey! And speaking of Shark Girl Week, we have reopened the Arakko Public Radio shop with exclusive Shark Girl Week 2023 merchandise exclusively available for just this week. Get summer started the right way. Support the podcast you missed like hell for the last month by hitting the link and grabbing yourself, I don't know, a tank top, a frisbee. And I'm that nerdy pop to burn all your social media. Keegan is Bulk Ranger. Do you have any final words of wisdom?
If you guys have any more questions, make sure to send them in.
We're banking, but we should still have a couple we're still haven't recorded by the time you see this. So
that's true.
Send in your questions, please. In the comment section here, on the Arakko Public Radio Gmail, on our Discord, which you should all have joined by now.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Either of us are on social media. You can hit me up in DMs. Keegan, are your DMs open?
Yeah.
Open them DMs if they're not. And until next time, remember your sunscreen.
Hey.